Hi, it's Anne. Thanks for stopping by. Well, it's letter of the week time again, and our unconventional letter this week is B. I'm sure many of you thought perhaps Anne will indulge in something about Barney, my grandson, and I'm not specifically, but it is. I guess we could say this is a Barney adjacent sort of letter of the week. I'm going to be giving you some ideas on baby gifts, junk journals as baby gifts. These can be some of the most precious, precious gifts you can ever give. And particularly if you make it kind of easy on the parents or grandparents who are caring for these children, not writing down, every milestone, but writing down fun things they say. And it occurred to me when Barney was little, I used to, we cared for him, 3 days a week when he was a newborn up until he was 3, I guess, when he started preschool. And then pandemic set in shortly after that. But I used to write down just funny things that he would say, during that adorable toddler stage, just in my regular journal. But it occurred to me when I started having, younger friends that were having babies, nieces and nephews that were having babies, friends that were having their first grandchildren that they were caring for a lot. Wouldn't it be fun to have a journal just about the things that the little ones say? And you take time to write just down, just jot down quickly that funny little phrase, a funny way they pronounce something, a funny way that they twist a word. And it's just wonderful to have all of those things all in one place. My memories for Barney are embedded in my regular journal, and I'm grateful to have them there. But making a baby journal, something fun, that the baby, something for a place to preserve the fun, sweet baby things that they say as they're learning to communicate. I just thought was a really great idea. Since then, I have made many of them. I have made so many of these baby journals, and so when B popped up, I thought, you know what, we're gonna do baby gifts. It's a gift that you give, when the baby is very small, and then as the months go by, the years go by, the baby is going to obviously say many more things. And it's a gift that the parents can have for many years and have a really treasured keepsake. So, is it really different than any other journal? Only in its, some of its layout and in its cover. And so we're going to work on 2 of these today because I have 2 babies in my extended family that Auntie Anne needs to send journals to. And this is going to be a one from my great niece, Inga Marie in Indiana. We're going to work on the cover today. Inga Marie will be 1 year old next month, so Auntie better get going because I'm, smart as a little girl as she is. I'm sure she's starting to pop out some of those words already. And then the other is for my little great nephew Owen, who lives in Southern California. He has a sister who's 2, and I made one of these journals for her parents to, begin to record some of her cute little things. They're already using it, and now her baby brother will have one too. So I think I'm going to actually work on Owen's cover first, and then I have a few more things we're going to do for Inga. One thing that really captivates me about doing these kinds of journals for gifts is that we tend to have, on our phones, we have lots and lots of photos, of things, pictures of the baby and, the toddler and the, young preschooler as they're going through that adorable developmental stage. But how often do we really write down some of those funny things that they say? That's what this is about. I feel like it's a really different sort of gift. Most of them that I have made previously have been very eclectic in style. I've just sort of gone through my stash and I've put a lot of my whimsical things in the journals. I've, just gone through and, there might be colors or things that might seem appropriate. You don't want them really baby-like because the parents are going to be using this to record things that they say, long after they're babies, but as they're just, young, growing to be, interesting little people. So, I have always been careful not to decorate them with, baby sleeping on clouds or, stars and moons or, those sorts of lullaby kinds of themes. But a really good source for material, if you're wanting to make something kind of thematic, and again, mine have typically not been thematic, but these that I'm making to share with you today are a little more thematic. Owen's, I took a children's book. I seem to have set it aside. Oh, no, here it is. I was at the thrift store with my daughter recently, and there was this little golden book collection, several little golden books all bound into one. Somebody had already ripped off the cover, and it had been harvested of some of its illustrations, but there was a lot that was left in there. And I went through this since it had already been started as collage, and I just cut out, some of the cute little illustrations. Ooh, there's part of a bunny there. Had to make some tough choices on which bunny was going to make it into the baby journal. But I thought this will be cute. I'm not going to decorate all of these, all the way through, because I have quite a few hours left of work to do on these. But I thought I would take you through the cover, because there's something really special that I do with the cover that really, I think, sets the tone for these. This bunny I thought would be a good way to begin this cover. For the base, actually, for both Inga's and Owen's, I used the little brown book concept that we did last week, where I took a file folder, covered it with, in this case it was wrapping paper, in this case it was scrapbook paper, so I varied a little bit here, and put the inside of the on the inside of the file folder, just collaged down book page. In this case, I used children's books, so that's kind of keeping with that theme. Let's take a quick peek at the inside of Owen's. I had some thrift store scrapbook paper that I thought would be nice. It's just a one signature. Again, I haven't done any decorating in. A little white sack, just some, different kinds of paper. And for the centerfold, I went back into that little golden book and just glued a couple of those pages side by side. So I'm going to be filling this with things that sort of extend that animal theme. But this bunny I thought would be a good way to begin, and I wanted to kind of ground that bunny. This is popping up, so I'm gonna tie it closed again. Typically I would put the cover decoration on before I stitched in the signature, but I really wanted to get going with these before I have a lot started before I shared with you. I want to ground. Is that too big? Maybe I will use this one instead. And the title of the book, I think, is important. And this one is going to be, and this is the title actually I typically use to personalize it for each child. This one is going to be called Things Owen Said. So it's clear to the young parents, my great niece and her husband, when I send this, that this is a book to put in things that Owen said. And when little Owen, when he gets to be older, he can pull this off the shelf and go, oh, look, things I said. This isn't necessarily the pictures or the videos. These are things that he actually verbalized as he was learning to communicate. I tried, here's what I used to create this title. Have you ever seen pegs? These stamps? I've had these for years, but there's just little individual letters. You can get different fonts, and they just kind of hook together like Legos, and you can build your words out and then stamp them. So they were really nice set to have if you want to customize a message in a journal. And particularly, I wasn't going to go to the stamp store and find a stamp that said Things Owen Said. I was going to have to create my own. So the only problem with using these is that it just takes a long time to, to find. You sort through the uppercase and the lowercase, and, you do lots of sorting, but, you just sit back and do that. But see, all of these, they're for that line O, and, they just fit together like that. And there's our stamping at the bottom. And I'll put this on this little scrap. Look how nice that is. These are very, very handy things to do. You might have these. Let me know if you do. Did I get these through May? I can't remember, but if you do a search through a lot of your craft suppliers, Pegs with a Z, and there's probably other manufacturers of similar things too. I chose the American Typewriter font, but I think there's other fonts you can get. And there's upper and lower case, some of the, there's repeats, particularly of some of the vowels. That's something you have to be mindful of if you're going to be having a lot of repeated letters. Sometimes you have to be creative in putting your little, your little words together. But anyway, this is how they're going to get lost all over my desk if I don't put these back in here. These are the ones that I sorted out to use for this project. But I wanted you to see this because to me, being able to customize the cover is what makes this really this kind of journal really special. So I think I'm just going to glue these down. Do I want a larger? I have this one, a larger circle. This is just wrapping or packing paper that I cut into a circle and speckled. I kind of think I like this bigger one better, and maybe I'll center this in the middle of the page, and then I can bring that bunny in a little bit and have the center showing off to the left side. So let's do that, and then we'll do Inga's, because I chose a different title for Inga Marie. These lovely names these children have. I love the name Owen. I had a friend when we lived in New York who named her son Owen, and that Owen, oh golly, is he maybe 10 years old now? I don't know. But I'm always interested in children's names. And let me find something to glue on here. I'm going to go back to my Doris glue stick. Thanks for all of the interesting comments that you had about Doris glue recently. It's we take our glue in this art very seriously, don't we? Again, I'm very happy with the performance of the Doris glue, and the price cannot be beat. It might be so good that it stuck onto the glue page. All right, now, fingers crossed that I can get this sort of in the middle, because I want the anchor to be in the middle of this page. Do I want to measure it? No. But I want to be careful not to get too much moisture around, because I inked the edges of that paper, and that moisture could pull a little bit of that ink color out there. So looks like I might have smeared a little bit. I can come back and rub that off. Or actually, Bunny's probably going to be, yeah, Bunny will be covering that up. Thanks, Bunny, for helping cover up that smudge that I had there. So let's put these here. Maybe this can be up a little bit more. I could put something else down here, but I kind of like it like that. Yeah, I'm feeling good about that. Oh, where is another gluing surface? when I was showing you the inside of the signature, that I've got lots of pockets and things to make. Typically, another thing that I tend to put in a signature for a baby gift is a map, because I think that's really good. But frankly, I've had so many babies that I've sent things to in Southern California, in New York State, and now in Indiana, that I'm a little low on my map supply. So I'll not be doing that. Baby Owen's big sister Everly, and her Things Everly Said journal that I made a couple of years ago, that has Southern California map on it. I said I don't typically do themes. One other themed one I did do was when my cousin, and how old are those twins now? Are they 4? I think it's something like that. She had twin grandsons, and their names both begin with B. They're Bo and Bryce. And so I made a bee theme, not the letter B, but the buzzing bee. And that made a really, and the title was Things They Said. So I didn't have both of their names. I could have said Things Bo and Bryce Said, but then later I didn't want them to be in competition saying, why did my brother get his name listed first? The things we think about, right? There we go. There's the cover of Baby Owen's journal. And I'm going to be filling this with little pockets, little tags, some writing space, little notebooks, but a lot of just small tuck-in things that as the years go by, my great niece and her husband can just oh, he said the cutest thing today, and jot it down and put it in here. And then they're going to have a really nice keepsake for Owen's growing capabilities in his in communicating, and I think that's going to be a wonderful keepsake for them. And I have quite a few more other animal pictures that I've cut out that I can decorate, some of the tags and some of the, some smaller things, some of the tags, some of the pockets, just, even like little background things. These can all go into Owen's. And so this is where the thematic nature of this is going to make this one pretty easy to complete. Let's turn to baby Inga, because that baby is going to be turning 1 next month, and Auntie needs to get this this journal to her. And I think my inside is a little bit more vintagey looking. I chose for a theme with this. I had some scrapbook paper that I got at the thrift store that had sort of a vintage school theme to it. So, we've got lots of little children with books, some things like this. And I thought, oh, this will be cute. My nephew and his wife, Inga's parents, they're both academics. In fact, they live on a college campus right now through the grad programs that they're involved with. And baby Inga lives in a college dorm. They have an apartment in the basement of a beautiful old historic college dorm that's part of their grad and teaching program that they're doing there. So baby Inga is already in college. I just kind of chose some colors that seemed to sort of go with the things that were in this scrapbook collection. And let's see how we can do something similar for baby Inga. Since this, here, let me tie it up again. These ties are just are they part of a sheet, or maybe just a little piece of muslin that I coffee dyed? I'll have to tell my nephew and his wife. There's a lot of coffee dyed things in here, and I'll have to tell them, you know, the coffee smell does dissipate over time. Here's another a piece of that scrapbook paper, and I just cut this circle out. And I think I want to put another brown. I wanted to separate this little brown grounding circle from the brown of the cover. And then what did I cut some of these things out from some of that scrapbook paper. Don't know exactly which ones I want to use. Whatever I don't use on the cover, I can use inside. So look at these. But what did I stamp here for Inga? I somehow love the phrase quotable Inga. And I think I did. I also just, you know, I stamped out things Inga said. Let's just try out a couple of these. These I did on a colored cardstock, but somehow the idea of quotable Inga just kind of sounded cute to me. And you know, knowing my dear nephew, that just seems like something that he would say. So, but let's. I think the brown is going to blend in too much, so I think we're going to want to use the coffee dye. I'm just going to go ahead and use the circle punch. Let me first, though, tear this off, the one that I did in a row. The nice thing about using, I love this typewriter font, because if it gets just a little bit off in terms of its evenness, it just looks like something out of an old typewriter, which is kind of what I was going for. All right, I'm kind of liking this one of this little older child there, and again with the books, that kind of looks kind of nice. This child actually had blonde hair on the scrapbook paper before I fussy cut it out. Inga is a dark-haired child, so I just got in with a colored pencil. Yeah, I think that could be okay. That might be okay, but I just have to try it in a circle. So here, this would not come through my circle punch very well if it were in there all by itself. So I put a little piece of scrap cardstock behind it. And did I get everything there? Quotable Inga. I kind of like the circle. Let me try. Now this is on cardstock, so this might be, maybe I'll go just slightly larger. It's a good thing I have all these circle punches close at hand, isn't it? There we go. And I'm basically making a little bit of a collage. Here. I want to cover that up a little bit. That's looking a little too big to me. I think I want another piece of this cream colored paper. But I'll tell you what, to go behind whatever I have for the title. But you know what? I'm just going to go right into this one, as long as I leave enough, because it's going to be covered up. I know I want the brown paper glued on top of the cream colored paper with just a little bit showing on the outside. So I'm just going to clip that out. And let me go ahead and glue this down, because that I know is something I want set together. And then we'll decide how we're going to title baby Inga's book. One reason I chose this color scheme for Inga is, although I have never met Inga, I see lots of pictures of her. And she lives in Indiana in a college dorm. And I've noticed Inga tends to wear a lot of like sage green and kind of cinnamon colored things. They don't, it would not have been appropriate for me to do a, pink lacy journal for Inga. There we go. That's not exactly in the middle, but that's going to be fine. And I think I'm liking this on the coffee dye paper, but it needs ink around the outside to define that edge. There we go. I would normally use glue stick on this, but I want to have that edge be really nice and strong. All right, so we've got our grounding background circle. We have our book title, which is Quotable Inga. Maybe I'll go back. This is adorable, but that looks like something should be in that little, that design. It looks like something should be written in there. Let's go back and give. That's kind of cute. That is kind of cute. I just kind of keep going back to this one, though. Yep, I think that's it. I think that is it. So I'm going to glue this down here. Maybe I'll tilt it a little bit. And we'll get this studious little child here, this little one. Whoops. Yeah, several people have commented on this metal tip, and I need to wash that, don't I, for my art glitter glue. Wherever you get your craft supplies, if you do a search on metal tip for glue, you will find that. I got mine from May Made It in Alabama. But there's lots of sources on Etsy as well for small independent craft suppliers. There you can see that's that hole that we cut out, but that's fine. If Inga ever watches this on YouTube, who knows if YouTube is even going to be around many years from now, but if Inga ever watches this, she's going to go, oh, Auntie cut corners by grabbing that background paper out of the existing design. There we go. I think I'm okay with this. I think I'm okay with this. Quotable Inga. Yes, 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 yes. So here we have Things Owen Said and Quotable Inga. And I've got to finish the inside, but I have a really good start to this. I want to show you a couple of quick things that if you decide to do a baby project like this, and I really hope you do, because it's just, they're just a treasure. They're just a treasure. You know, you kind of got to know your audience though too. You know, if it's young parents that this just wouldn't be their thing. You know, maybe you give it to the grandparent, or because you don't want to give people an obligation. But if you know the recipients well enough to know that they would enjoy, that if they even might enjoy this, you know, really go, you know, give it a try. It really is, they're just wonderful treasures to give. Other ways that you can personalize this, you know, sometimes you can buy those books full of phrases, like sticker phrases that you can peel off, you know, that say, you know, trust yourself, or, you know, believe in love, or something like that, that you can put onto ephemera in your junk journal. You can also print your own. I don't have a color printer, but I just got in my regular black and white printer and just printed out, you know, some of these phrases. And these are little things that I can put throughout each journal as, again, sort of a prompt and sort of a reminder that this is for writing down and recording things that these children said. You know, so that's something that can help, you know, help guide young parents or grandparents in using a journal like this. Another thing to have handy is to have some of your stamps that have your numerals on them. And you know what? Somewhere in a margin, you know, stamp, you know, the baby's birth date, stamp their parents' house number, stamp their zip code, stamp, you know, significant numbers that are just sort of delightfully embedded into the journal. That makes it really personal and, you know, and just really fun. So there you go. I will just show you, I have saved, I have an old, in keeping with Inga's theme of the vintage school motif, I had this very old, I think it's from 1912 or something like that, I got from a neighbor. It's mostly fallen apart, but I have a lot of text in from this little old school reader that I'm pulling that out to put into Inga's journal as well. So, you know, these are going to be some pockets. These will back some tags. I have some illustrations that will be part of the pockets there. Obviously, I went through that scrapbook paper and did some fussy cutting of some children there, and you know, so that inside will fill up nicely. I have a little. This came from that same scrapbook page, and you know, I can, guess what? I can just make a little belly band there and put a little notebook underneath there, and have lots of potential space for my nephew and his wife to write down things that sweet Inga said. I'm going to illustrate too, or decorate too, with these little whimsical flowers that were in the last video. I think they'll be cute and they'll go nicely with that. So there is our letter of the week for B, baby gift. I hope you have fun with this. And let's take one last look at quotable Inga and things Owen said. Oh, I hope I get to meet these sweet babies someday. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will. Our extended family is spread out very far, but we do tend to show up at unusual and delightful times for one another. Let's record today's letter of the week. I'm not really going to call it a baby book. I'm just going to go back to calling it a baby gift, because it's for long, but you give the gift when they're a baby, and then it lasts for a long time after that. All right, let's see what next week's letter of the week is going to be, friends. Here is our trusty sack. This will be our 10th week. Not even halfway through. What is it going to be for next Sunday? Oh, so exciting. N. I have some thoughts. Time will tell. 1 week, in fact. We'll see you then. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.